Happy Monday and welcome back, IDP lovers of the world unite. Tonight we've got some magic happening. We're going to do a redraft. We are going to do a mock draft because we are hot heavy in redraft season, or at least we'll be here shortly. If I know some redraft leagues that I'm a part of are drafting. So we're going to do that tonight. We're going to try to help you out. We're going to do 20 rounds. So that gives you some good quality offense, some defense. We'll mix in some good conversations along the way and try to have some fun with it. As always, not actually as always, because I'm back from vacation. So as always, today and most days, I am joined by two of the best in the business, Austin and Kraig. Kraig, missed you, buddy. How are you, my friend? How's the world treating you today?
I'm doing all right. I head off of work to get stuff done, and got stuff done. So that was good. Semi-relaxing day. How are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, I was relaxed. Vacation was beautiful. It was warm. I had my feet in the sand most of the time, so I can't complain. And then I had to come back, and kids started virtual school. So I'm a virtual school teacher as well as all of what's going on here. So it was definitely interesting. Definitely a busy day, but no complaints. Austin, my friend, what's happening? How are you, sir?
Well, I thought that as always was a perfect lead in to the fact that you were on vacation. I thought that was very intentional.
See, I need to start taking more vacations because I do believe I am the vacation king. I need to get all these vacations that people believe I'm having. So
yeah,
but yes, I would like to be an as always vacationer.
Yep, I'm good. Looking forward to a mock draft tonight. Redraft. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna fly through this thing, like you said. Have some discussion. We got a full draft room, I believe. One spot left, so close enough.
Yeah, and it'll be fine. Even if we have to let it auto pick in those spots. I mean, you'll get the gist of it because we got some great IDP drafters in here. Jumped in and grabbed some folks from the IDP Invitational that I've been drafting with and tried to pull in IDP focused minds. So this should be a really good barometer for those of you that are doing IDP leagues as to what the communities are drafting and the people that you're playing with might be drafting. And it gives you an opportunity to know when and where to start taking guys. So should be pretty good, pretty smooth, and we're just going to go with it. We're going to let it happen and see how it goes, and hopefully give you some analysis and thoughts as we go through the draft. We'll see what happens with it. Training camp started, so sometimes training camp hype can cause people to draft or overdraft players. I've seen it. You'll see it time and time again. Or injuries cause changes. I mean, think about we got a Bronco drafting with us tonight, but think about Tim Patrick. I mean, that's going to cause people to overdraft somewhere. Some of these Denver receivers trying to find who's the guy that's going to fill the Tim Patrick role. Things like that. So, have you guys any as we get ready to get this thing going? And I appreciate Kraig running this thing for me because that's fantastic. But as we started training camp and as we're kind of in the thick of it, have you guys heard any news and notes, anything that's really got you excited IDP wise, or maybe been a cause for concern? Is there any IDP news and notes, Kraig, that you've been keeping an eye on that have made you go, made your ears stand up and your spidey sense tingle?
Divine Diablo looking like he's in contention for a starting spot. He's a guy that we've mentioned a little bit on prior shows that we like, and he sort of has that not necessarily dual eligibility, but he's not just going to play a linebacker. He does have that history of playing in the secondary from college, so it gives you a little bit of flexibility. Something similar to that, it sounds like the Cardinals are now more open to using Isaiah Simmons in that same role that he sort of had in college, all over the field in the safety linebacker hybrid role, instead of just trying to peg him as a safety. Talking to someone tonight and asking me just about, the positionality of defense and if it's changing more. And I do think that it is, but, teams are, like a lot of us, just hard to break old habits sometimes. Unless you get a new mind in there or something, it can be hard to make those changes and then have them stick and have the patience to let them stick if they're going to. So, the defenses are adapting to the way the NFL is moving. So I think you're going to be seeing more of that. And those are the two things off the top of my head that I could think of.
Austin, anything exciting from training camp that you've been hearing about or witnessing?
Defensively or just in general?
I mean, defensively, obviously, because it's an IDP show. But if there's anything else that really gets you excited, feel free. I'm easy about it. Let's just do it.
No, I mean, I try not to get too caught up in it. I try to keep up with really consistent news. I like to see things that are happening consistently. I don't get caught up in one play. I think McCole Hardman had a one-handed catch the other day, which is cool, but whatever. But I mean, defensively, I don't know, man. Like, there's just not enough information out there right now. I'm looking forward to the preseason games. I want to see these guys get in action. I want to see them get hands on people. I'm really curious to see. I think the Jets have a preseason game coming up. I'm curious to see like if any of
they
those
all
rookies.
have preseason games coming up.
Yeah, but like really soon. Tomorrow, right? It's the Giants. Oh no, it's the Giants and the. Who do they play? I can't remember. But regardless, I mean, like one of the guys that I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully sooner than later, is like a guy like Jermaine Johnson. Players like that who I'm targeting in, for rookies, especially for dynasty leagues, who may be able to return big dividends.
Yeah, I try not to get too caught up in training camp hype, right? Like guys can look amazing in training camp and then just be guys that are practice squatters. Just because they looked good in camp doesn't mean they're really going to make anything of it. So guys that you haven't really heard of or haven't heard a lot of, I try to, take that information with a grain of salt, especially for teams where I'm looking for something. So like Lions wise, when you're looking at the linebacker room, I mean, Rodriguez has continued to have good days. So that's a plus. But that doesn't make me think that he's immediately going to get a starting job day one. That's just, hey, he's got potential to maybe develop into somebody who gets some playing time, significant playing time, more than just special teams, things like that. So when I'm watching training camps, I mean, otherwise, there hasn't been a ton of huge news and notes. I mean, injuries have been mostly on the offensive side. Defensive wise, like the Raiders brought in Danny Shelton this week for a tryout. Doesn't mean much. I'm not starting him as a D tackle in a D tackle specific league if they did sign him, I mean, nothing huge has happened so far in training camp from the IDP wise side of things where I've changed any of my thoughts.
I think Anthony Barr signed with the Cowboys, and I know I should know that, but it also doesn't completely move the needle for me. And maybe only in the deepest of leagues.
He did. He did.
So could see some relevance if he ends up being the main second linebacker because they did need veteran help. We talked about that on prior shows, so I'm fine with the signing, but it also doesn't move the needle in most of the leagues that I'm in. So
true story. I mean, Barr was a tackle guy for a while with the Vikings, but going to a team like the Cowboys, he's not going to overtake any of them, and I mean it may mean more. It'll take more time to develop a guy like Jabril Cox. Like I could see Barr getting more playing time than a younger guy that we've been high on, kind of thing. But otherwise, no, I'm not jumping the gun and getting too excited for a move like that.
The other thing that I saw, and it looks like we're full now, so I'm going to start this up in a moment. But from the cornerback specific type of leagues that we've talked about before, with Tre'Davious White still on the PUP list, and Kyer Elam has been targeted a lot and has not looked amazing so far in camp, and it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to start for them or anything, but with the draft capital he had, there was that hope, and one of those interesting battles because, again, with that cornerback specific position, if you're in those leagues, those guys that get targeted a lot are really good chances of being picked up off the waiver wire and getting you points.
Well, and absolutely. I mean, and rookies, how many times do people say that rookies take, 2 to 3 seasons to really develop, especially cornerback rookies take a little bit of time. So if you're putting those guys, on your team and they're playing significant amount of reps, they're probably going to get targeted a bunch because teams want to know what they're getting. They want to get film on the guy. So they're going to target a bunch and see if he can handle pro speed, pro players. It looks like Barr signed on the 4th, and they immediately put him on the PUP list, and I haven't seen him come off yet. So whatever.
There we go.
All right,
we're underway.
So it is off. We are rolling. Like I said, it's 20 rounds, so we're going to get you some offense, some defense, and we're going to have fun with it. Everybody's in, so we're going to have all IDP drafters drafting. There's no nothing. Everybody's rolling, and I'm about to pick 3 here after Bro Cal 38. So this will be a good time to pick a cornerback, right?
So real quick, are we doing this is redraft? Obviously, is there any super flex, tight end premium, any kind of thing that anybody cares or needs to know about, or are we just like whatever?
Single quarterback with 1 flex. So we got a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. On offense, 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive backs, and a flex on defense. So 7 and 7 for starters. And if we get that far, I think that leaves us 6 bench spots.
Okay. Yeah, I did have some questions about that outside of the chat. Second thing is, you guys did ask me about anything I did see in camp. One thing that I am seeing that's consistent, it is on the offensive side of the ball, and it's kind of exciting, especially if you have Saquon Barkley, is Evan Neal looks like the real deal.
Yeah.
And I will say, did you guys see the video of Jordan Davis as well today? Which I don't know who that was. It wasn't Kels.
Oh, no, they destroy a center?
He's going to end up playing against in the NFL, and no team is going to be I shouldn't say no team. I would hope no team is dumb enough just to leave some backup center on an island against him when he's in the game. So it's sort of like the Kyle Hamilton thing we saw, where I think it's the same thing we have every year. People see one little play they can put on Twitter and it blows up and they get excited.
Yep. Yeah, he wrecked the kid.
I mean, but you're expecting him to, right? He's a physical, just a beast. So if he isn't wrecking people, people are going to start wondering, right? At least that's what I would think. I mean, that's, personal opinion. Who knows? All right. So as we're doing this, we're going to do things a little different. We're going to take questions during the show. So we got Axis Mythics. Hopefully I said that right. And if I didn't, I do apologize, my friend. Got a league with IDPs. I get Jerick McKinnon, Darren Waller, DJ Moore, Micah Parsons, I'm assuming Devonta Smith, and a 3rd round pick. And he receives Mixon, Knox, Higgins, and a 16th round pick. This is a good trade for me. I mean, I like Waller. DJ Moore could still be good. Parsons is one of my top IDPs. I mean, it feels like you're giving up quite a bit in Mixon and Higgins. But if you're, depending on how the IDP scoring is, I mean, that could be a huge get for you because Parsons is arguably a top, 5 to 10 piece. Thoughts, comments, gentlemen? I know Austin just drafted, so we'll start with Austin. Seems Kraig will be up next. Austin, what do you think about this trade? Are you doing this?
Where was that? I'm trying to look at this. Where are we seeing this at?
It's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
You must not.
Yeah. No, I got the comments now. Yep. Okay. So league with IDPs, he got Jerick McKinnon, Waller, DJ Moore, Parsons, Devontae. Is that Devontae Smith?
I think it's Devonta Smith.
I think it is. That's how you spell the name.
Currently in the game,
spelled like that.
Freeman is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah, and then a 3rd round pick, Mixon, Knox, Higgins. Yeah, I mean, I'm personally not big on DJ Moore. I'll just be the first to say it. Like, I'm way too low on him. I am higher on Waller. I think Jerick McKinnon could carve out a game, a role in the passing game there. Obviously, we love Parsons, and then Devonta Smith. I think he's going to be the beneficiary of having, the new acquisition there, AJ Brown, in Philly. But yeah, I mean, I like it. Mixon and Higgins are pretty strong, but you get a 3rd round pick back too. So yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah, if your team can withstand losing an RB1 and a back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2, I'm fine with it because you're getting an elite IDP option. Kraig, thoughts?
Yeah, I would assume that the IDP scoring is a little bit less important just based on, if you're having about even scoring from offense to defense, I would easily take the side that he's getting. That said, it looks like it's probably sort of a win now move for you. I think by and large, McKinnon's probably an afterthought. You're talking about him getting cut potentially here too. So I think it's relatively even, assuming the defense is slightly lower than offense. But DJ Moore, I think, could easily end up with things that we're hearing about him having a real quarterback, Baker having something to prove this year. Baker does have talent. I think people do forget that just based on the things that have gone on with him in Cleveland and just Cleveland in general the past few years. I think he could easily rejuvenate him. Waller's a huge upgrade over Knox for me. If you look at how Knox got his points, I think it was the highest percentage of his points of any like top 10 or 15 tight end that got him just off of touchdowns last year. And we had seen that sort of regression from someone like Robert Tonyan previously. So I like the trade for you again. And if it isn't, defense a little deficient in scoring, if it's even, I think it's a clear win for you, depending, again, on the makeup of your team. With what we have right now, I like your side.
Right. I like it. So there you go, Axis. Hopefully that helps you win not only your trade but your league. So if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We will chop it up about them while we're drafting. As you can see, I got the big board going here, so you can see. We're 3 rounds in, getting to be 3 rounds in. IDPs you're not going to see going. I would anticipate with this kind of format, and in most formats, I probably wouldn't be looking at IDPs until 6, maybe 5, depending on if you're super excited about grabbing your guy. Look, I love it. Leanne, welcome. I'm glad you asked that question because I was in the middle of saying it. And all right, sorry. Leanne's husband. This is my wife's account, apparently. Welcome, Leanne's husband.
Whoever you are, welcome.
So for a newer IDP, a novice IDP drafter, when would you guys start targeting him? I already said 6th round, probably 7th round in most formats. Austin, what about you?
It depends on the team. I mean, for me, I want to get my core pieces, obviously. In a super flex, I'd like to at least have one really good quarterback, if not 2 quarterbacks. But definitely got to have your running back situation and your receiver situation. And if it's tight end premium, especially your tight end situation worked out. So I wouldn't rush to be the first. That's never a goal of mine. I never want to be the first guy that takes an IDP player off the board. Like, yeah, we all want Micah Parsons, or yeah, we all want Roquan or TJ Watt or whoever. But for me, I tend to want to be the guy that lets the draft happen, let it come to me, and then play off of that. And maybe even if the first guy comes off the board, but then like there's a run of, offensive players that goes on. Like, I'm going to keep the wheels moving on the offensive guys. I'm not going to stop and go IDP right there just because one person did. So I like to kind of let the draft happen and just see how it goes, see how the rest of the draft goes. And I mean, for me, probably, I don't know, 9 to 11 might be all right if you want to start looking at IDP in that range, if you're looking at high-end IDP production. But otherwise, I mean, you could probably even wait until like 11, 12, 13.
Welcome, Ben, and I'm glad you jumped into the mock with us. So this is actually one of our friends here drafting with us. So I appreciate that. That's cool. And we've now are telling him so that he can make sure to get some IDPs before we draft them, because we're telling him all our super secrets. Kraig, tell us your secrets.
So the cop-out answer is the same answer you always get from me. Is it really depends on your league. There's a couple leagues that I'm in right now that are like sort of one of them is just a fun redraft with some people. It's everyone's a cat owner, so it's felines and fantasy. So it's
Mr. Scamper's in there, isn't he?
No, because Mr. Scampers is a cat. I don't think he's allowed to have pet cats if you are a cat. I don't know the official ruling of the FDA or anything on that, but. And so it's the same sort of scoring, I believe, as like the IDP Invitational that you mentioned, Brad, that I jumped into here too. So it is really close to as balanced as you can sort of get on a lot of sites for the different positions. So, and something like that, I took, because I wanted Micah Parsons and haven't gotten him any redraft leagues this year, I took him in like the 5th round or something like that, just because of how the scoring is. So if you're having relatively balanced scoring, depending on how the positions are set up, because I think this one too is using that true position that MFL has, which is, I believe, different than the IDP Invitational. If you find a area where you have to start, like 4 linebackers in here, sometimes that's going to outweigh having to start 2 running backs to get that, that top talent. That way you're not just starting 4 potential waiver wire back end guys there. Yeah, there's more linebackers potentially that are going to get you stats, but that's weighed out by having to start more. So to me, it's really just based on how your league is set up. And in a league that most novices are in, you're not going to have that sort of offense to defense even or even-ish scoring. It's usually going to be a little bit of defensive deficient. If that's the case, I'm going to usually look to fill most or all of my offensive starters, maybe not quarterback if it isn't a super flex league, or tight end if you don't grab one of the top 4 or something. Maybe I'll let tight end sit for a while.
Yeah, that was. I'm a little bit of both. So I'm a little bit awesome where I let the draft kind of fall where it is and kind of go based on that, And in this draft, I was immediately targeting quarterback in this round because I was watching, like like Kraig said, the top 4 tight ends are gone now at this point. So I'm like, maybe I grab a quarterback before others start to do it. So I assume probably 5th or 6th round we start seeing maybe a quarterback here and there go. All of a sudden, I had my pick queued up, and quarterback goes. I'm like, oh crap! All right, well I guess I'll take the other quarterback that I wanted to grab, because I like to target one of the top 2 or 3, but normally I don't target them till 5, 6, kind of about the time I start targeting IDPs where I consider quarterback in a 1 QB situation. But for me, and it was funny because I was having a conversation with a friend about draft strategies, and like most things in my life, I don't have a plan in place. I kind of wing it based on what's going on, because I like the spontaneity of it. I like people to, and especially in fantasy football, I do it more so that people don't really get locked in and go, okay, I know what Brad's doing, especially because I've been working in the fantasy space for many years now. A lot of people in leagues with me that see our content and know what I'm doing. So I'm like, listen, if I leave them guessing, then at least maybe there's some level of surprise. People said, oh, well, your rankings say this and you didn't do this. Okay, well, it's my choice. I chose not to, just because I didn't follow my rankings. I mean, you can't always do what you say, always follow your rankings, especially in this world. So
I love the response there. Okay.
I mean, because I've had people do that in drafts. They've looked up, shameless plug, rotoheat.com to pull up my rankings for IDP. I just did my home league draft. I don't know, a couple many shows back we talked about, and I was talking about some of the things that happened on it. And the guy pulled up my rankings, like, hey, well, this is how your rankings are, and that's not how you drafted. I was sniping guys, trying to get guys that you had in your rankings, and you were going to different, you were zigging and I was zagging. I was like, okay, so what? You paid the league fees. I paid the league fees. I can do whatever I want with this team. So
I've told people the same thing where, when I look at my rankings and when I'm setting this up, I try to think as rationally as possible. But also depending on the type of league and the scoring and all this sort of. Do you want me to pause it for you, Brad?
Come on, Brad.
I got him.
No, you can
All
take
right.
it.
I'll grab another running back.
I'm not always going to draft rationally. Sometimes if there's a guy that I want that I think people are going to take, I'm just going to take him too early, because I'm completely, when I'm in my drafts myself for my own teams, about getting my guy. So if I take him too early over ADP, I guess I don't quite care. I've given up on caring about that. And some people think that's great. Some people are about, you got to stick to straight value. And it's like, I'm not doing fantasy personally in my own leagues as a business, because I don't make nearly enough money. I don't play with nearly enough stakes to run this business. So I'm going to have some fun and get the team that I want, or as close to it as I can. Like last year in my home league, it's $15. There's 14 teams. It's a nice little pot, but it's not life-changing money. It's more about pride in who you're beating. It's going on year 12 of it. And I took Kyle Pitts with the first overall pick because I wanted Kyle Pitts and I didn't have a worthwhile tight end. And I'm happy with it then, and I'm happy with it now. And people are like, oh, well, Jamar Chase is the value. It's like, yep, he was. But damn it, I wanted
Kyle Pitts, I wanted
tight end for my team, and that's what I'm doing. So
it's not what I wanted.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, there's an obsession about like ADP, but in the 2021 preseason, like I had Cup in my redraft league, but I also traded for him in a dynasty league for what I would consider peanuts based on what he returned. And there was a reason that his ADP was low. And then, of course, he outperformed his ADP. And so hindsight's 2020. Like, people are going to tell you, oh, draft this player at this position and cash in on the, on the outperforming his ADP. And they obsess over that. And like, no, draft the team that you like, draft the team that you love. Like, get the guys that you think are going to be the best.
And
pretty simple.
And I will say that I just took the first IDP because I don't pick again for a lot of picks. I mean, look at, I have all of round 6 and most of round 7 before I get a pick. And I know at some point in the next round, IDPs are going to start going a little bit. And I want to make sure there you go. There's another one that went. I want to make sure I got one of 3 guys, either Parsons, Watt, or Roquan Smith. Those are kind of the 3 guys I like to really build my team, my IDPs around at this point as I'm drafting. So those are kind of my 3 top guys in my mind that I like to try to target. And I knew if I waited to 7-8, which would be my next pick, there's no chance that I'm getting any of those 3. At least that was my thought. So that's why I took him here. It is a little bit of a stretch. I normally don't start thinking about IDPs until, mid 6 to mid 7. So I'm not that far ahead. Albert, welcome, my friend. Glad to see you. So that's why I took him. Now, Kraig, we see TJ Watt go pretty quickly thereafter. Is that your thought on some of these IDPs? Do you kind of expect those basic guys, the 3 that I mentioned, or any others, to really be the high end ones that people take this early?
I think generally you're going to see it, and again, all scoring base. If you think about your average sort of league, Parsons, Watt, then probably your top defensive linemen, those defensive ends, maybe Aaron Donald, and then your sort of Roquan Smith type linebackers are probably going to be all in about the same round or 2, 3 rounds of each other. Usually you're not going to see a whole lot of defensive backs taken earlier than a couple of rounds after those top guys, just based on how that scoring goes. But yeah, especially again, if it's balanced sort of scoring offense to defense, yeah, that's what you're going to see is these guys going early and often.
Yeah. So we did get a question. Hunter, welcome. I don't know that I've seen you in the chat, so I'm glad you're here, my friend. We're going offense for this one. So as we continue this mock draft, we're gonna chit chat a little bit about rookies here. I'm gonna start with Kraig here because Austin will be picking in another second. Jahan Dotson or George Pickens, which rookie do you like?
If we're talking dynasty long term, it's George Pickens. I think there's a really good chance that he was the most talented wide receiver if you're just going based off of pure talent in the draft this year. And I know his draft capital didn't live up to that, but the way that the guy played, the size, the speed, he has all the traits. He has that mentality of go get the ball. He has all that sort of stuff you'd want in a wide receiver. Unfortunately, he had some other issues. Sort of there's attitude, comments and beliefs about him by some, and then, the injury that he had. So he fell. If he was completely healthy and had stayed out of trouble, I really believe he was probably the first wide receiver taken in the draft just based on his ability. So long-term Pickens, if you're talking this year, I think there's a chance Dotson outperforms him just because I do believe Washington's a better situation this year overall than Pittsburgh, which is kind of yuck to say because I'm not a huge fan of what Washington has either, but I'm still just not sold on what Pittsburgh's building right now.
Austin.
I'm Pickens, and I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have any remorse about it. I mean, Jahan Dotson's going to be a fine player. Like the people who've drafted Jahan Dotson, where they drafted them in their rookie drafts to date. Now, the more that comes out, the more we see, the more that probably changes. But most of the people spent less for Jahan Dotson, or maybe around the same as Pickens. Some drafts. I mean, it depends on if you liked him or not. Like I've seen him go high. I've seen him slide really far. Surprisingly far. But for me, it's George Pickens. I'm just buying the talent, especially in a dynasty league. In redraft, I'm probably like whatever split. But for dynasty, I'm probably going Pickens.
Yeah, in dynasty, I am perfectly fine with both. I like both players long term because we know Washington's not going to be rolling out the same quarterback this time next year, would be my guess. It seems as though Wentz continues to run himself out of every town here recently for whatever reason. And the same thing with Pittsburgh. This time next year, Pittsburgh's going to look a little different. Pickett's year 2 in the system, more comfortable, and probably at that point going to be, ready to take the reins if he hasn't already. I like Pickens, the player, better. I love both players pretty good. I like Pickens more, though. I think Jahan Dotson and Pickens both could. If you told me in 10 years they're both still playing and they're both still at a high level, it would not surprise me. But Pickens has the better athletic profile, and you're already seeing in camp. Pickens is making all sorts of acrobatic catches and doing some things. Can he get over the injuries that have and they've all been kind of quirky injuries. So give me Pickens this year. Give me Pickens long term. But I don't hate Dotson either. I think Dotson has a role. I just don't trust what Washington's doing on offense. I don't really know what to make of what they're doing because we've seen it time and time again over the last few years. Wentz, I don't know what happened, man, but something happened that really just kind of threw him off his game, and he's not been able to get back since.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps, Hunter.
Quick question, because you mentioned Roquan earlier as being like one of your top 3 guys. I took him intentionally because I felt like at that spot it wouldn't matter which like receiver, running back I took, I wasn't going to fall in love with them. And then I knew I could punt on quarterback until the next pick. So I went ahead and made sure I grabbed my guy, Roquan Smith. But I do have a question. Are we letting him slide at all in drafts? Are we worried about his current situation? I mean, right now he's on the pup list. We all talked about it a little bit before. We believe he's going to see the field, but is there any concern that he'll be out there week 1 or not?
I'm not concerned enough to.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. And I also noticed Shaquille Leonard.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed the S Leonard, and I'm like, who? And then I remembered the name change. So that's interesting.
It is, yes. He does like to go by Shaquille now.
Well, I have a question about that too, because like there's a legal process to this, right? So Sleeper just changes anybody's name at their request, which good for Sleeper for honoring Shaquille Leonard's request. But
I mean, when you're one of the best defensive players in the game, I'm sure they're listening, right?
Did he actually change his name?
No, it's his middle name, and that's what he said his family and close friends call him. So that's what he wants to go by.
Yeah,
Okay. That's why he's being right. His legal first name is still Darius.
Are we calling Ahmad Gardner Sauce Gardner or Ahmad?
Well, that's
Gardner?
a nickname. I don't think Sauce is his middle name.
Okay. Oh, I wish it was.
Well, I wish. I mean, what is it? Quintaurus or Quintavious Jones or something is Julio Jones. I mean, there's some really cool like first names out there that I wish people would go by instead of their nicknames, but everyone calls him Julio. So,
When you said the Quintavious, it makes you think of the Key Appeal episode where they're doing the football names or whatever, the college East-West Shrine Bowl or whatever. That episode was hilarious. And I'm glad that it's another thing, feather in the cap of Sleeper. Sleeper's always on top of trying to update, make changes, trying to stay on top of things. I do appreciate the app and what it's trying to do. I know it's behind the 8-ball. All these other platforms have been out for a little bit longer. MFL's obviously the top one in a lot of people's minds, but a lot of these other ones have been out for a minute. Flea Flicker and Fantrax and some of these others that are trying to get to that level. So I do appreciate what Sleeper does. I know it's not perfect for sure, but it's willing to make changes and stay up to date and kind of on the fly fix things and make it better. So I do appreciate it. I mean, and obviously name things just a little thing, but it is what it is. So Hunter's got another question, and we're always willing to answer all your questions. I know it's an IDP show, but we do the offensive stuff too. Don't let people fool you. One more question: Cordero Patterson or AJ Dillon for fantasy? For me, it's AJ Dillon all day. Because I think that offense is going to have to run through 2 running backs, even if they're catching passes out of the backfield. Austin's up now, so we'll go to Kraig next. Kraig, Patterson or Dillon?
Dynasty is clearly Dillon. So if we're talking redraft, like what we're doing here, it's really hard to say what Green Bay is going to be doing this year. Are they going to be committing more to that run because their offensive line is completely messed up? I don't know if you've checked that out on Twitter, but their current unofficial released from the Packers offensive line chart is a bunch of names that you haven't heard of outside of John Runyon, and that's his kid, as opposed to the John Runyon we grew up with. So it's a messy situation there, and I think they're probably going to need to run the ball more, which gives Dillon more value. On the other hand, what's going on with the mess of running backs? I mean, what is Patterson, like 33 years old or something like that? I mean, he's getting up there and he doesn't have that wear and tear on him because he hasn't been, running back or even a full-time wide receiver for a lot of his career. If we're in a PPR league, give me Patterson at his value because I think he's even being drafted after Dillon, but I think he's going to be the pass-catching back in that defense.
Austin.
I'm gonna go opposite again. I'm gonna say AJ Dillon.
Well, you didn't go opposite of me because I said AJ Dillon as well.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, we agreed the last time too.
So why AJ Dillon over Patterson then?
Oh, you're gonna make me do that? I just don't like the offense in Atlanta, and then I actually am a huge fan of Tyler Algier. So I think he carves out more of a role in that offense than what people are giving him credit for. All off season and even now into camp, we're seeing, he's getting on the field. He's pretty much locked himself into some sort of role. The Falcons have made that pretty apparent. AJ Dillon, he's kind of in the same position. So, and especially if, I mean, the upside for AJ Dillon, if anything happens to Aaron Jones, is like huge, right?
True story.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's quality. I think there's quality action for him to be had anyway.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is going to have to get used to a group of new wide receivers for the most part. I mean, he's got some veterans, but those aren't the ones that are going to be catching most of the passes. So his running backs are going to get peppered with targets. They're going to get a ton of action, whether running or catching passes. So
and Devontae's no longer there, so there's no red zone threat like there was for sure. So surely some of those red zone plays are going to go more to the running backs, whether that's AJ Dillon or Aaron Jones. Yeah. I do have a question about our draft, and this is an IDP show, so we need to discuss this. Something interesting happened in the 7th round. Ooh. We had Nick Bosa go, then Myles Garrett, then Aaron Donald. Sort of the reverse for what I would think would happen for defensive linemen. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I took Bosa first.
So. Well, you did, yeah. So
explain yourself.
Sorry, Kraig. Yeah. Do it. Yeah. What do we got? Why do we go that? What happened there?
We were just talking about you scampers. You missed us talking about cat drafts.
I just hear the timer going off and making sure it's not my team coming up on the draft timer.
I know, me too.
I don't know. I wanted to do something different, and I think that the talent around Nick Bosa in terms of the defensive line is a little bit better, where it's not just going to be all focused on him. Aaron Donald is still a heck of a player, and really, if we're talking redraft, I have those 3 guys just basically thrown into a tier together, so it's kind of whoever I feel like taking out of the 3 of them that day.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also, it was going to give me a chance to have the Bosa brothers, so it's fun.
I'm going to take a guy that I talked about on Craig's Amazing Player Normal Activity show that y'all better go watch, Jamal Adams, because he's woefully underappreciated. I'd take him over the guy that went before him, but that's just me personally.
And I want to throw something in here quick before you go into that, Brad. Someone asked about Bosa, that'd be Joey, as a linebacker. So Sleeper gives a lot of dual positionality because they do not have specific positions for these players. It's just flat defensive line, linebacker, defensive back. And with the way that the base defense, now we know most teams use a whole bunch of different defenses these days, but the base defense that they've said that they're going to be using is going to be more of a 3-4, which is going to have Bosa and Mack as more of outside edge rushers and not just always hand in the dirt type of guys. And that's why Sleeper is reflecting of giving him that dual positionality of linebacker and defensive lineman.
There you go.
You'll see a lot of guys on Sleeper, like Jeremy Chin, another guy I took as linebacker, defensive back positionality.
All right, so we have another question, offensive related, but we love them, so we're gonna answer them all. Anthony, my friend, welcome. It's always good to see you. Michael Thomas remains a risky draft pick, given his issues over the past 2 seasons, but could he still be in the wide receiver 1 picture if the Saints opt to be more pass heavy than they were last season? We're not going to go with Austin and mess him up while he's drafting. Kraig, how do you feel about Thomas, and is he risky?
I certainly do think he's risky because has he played at all? Or it's like a couple games in the past 2 years? Like he's barely played in 2 years here. And certainly a guy of his age, well, I'm talking for NFL player, not in real life. Because
I mean, if we're Anthony Leone, then he's already retired.
And there's some inherent risk there. And the other thing is that they have much better weapons around him on that offense in terms of other pass catchers than the last time that he was playing. So do I think there's inherent risk? Certainly. And do I expect him to be, if he plays the whole season for the Saints, even if Jameis has a great year, do I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 at the end of the year? No. But I do think he has probably that back-end wide receiver 1 tippy-top ceiling, and if I got a wide receiver 2 season out of him, I'd be really happy with him.
There you go. So hopefully that helps, Anthony. Oh, wait, Austin, what's your take on Michael Thomas? Is there anything do you think he can be a wide receiver 1 picture this year?
Michael Thomas has been so frustrating to me over the last 2 seasons. A guy who just didn't act like he really wanted to play football. So I've avoided him at all costs, but now he's back and he's talking again, which is good. And, he seems to look like he's healthy, on the right track. Wide receiver 1 picture. I mean, I don't know. He's got more competition there now with Olave, I think. And then, the question is is Jameis going to be able to stay healthy? We saw him roll his ankle today, I think, in training camp. Doesn't sound like it's anything serious, but, Andy Dalton comes in behind him, I believe. And then the other question is, like, even if Winston's on the field, what version of Winston are you getting any given day? So are there concerns? Are there risks still? Yes. Some of those risks have absolutely nothing to do with Thomas. And then, there is still the concerns of, like, how healthy is he going to be? How, honestly, how dedicated is he going to be when he returns? Like, if things are going good, Michael Thomas is great. And if things are not going well, what is Michael Thomas doing? And that uncertainty for me plays a lot into whether or not I even want to touch the guy. That's just me. All the talent in the world. But sometimes there's things upstairs that are going on that, for me, I'm like, I'll look elsewhere.
So the chat on Sleeper saying, so what you're saying is Michael Thomas got drafted way too early.
Oh, no. See, where did he go? I mean, like, again, it's that ADP thing, right? That we talked about. Ninth round. Who did he go? Who went before him? I mean,
Gabriel Davis went just after.
Went right after him.
Drake London went before him. I mean, so you see rookie receivers that have a chance to be number one on their team.
Yeah, I mean,
I like wide receiver 30 is about where he went.
I like him as much as I like
anyone else in that area.
I don't know if I should say this out loud because Kraig drafted Mooney. I don't know if I like. I mean, I like Mooney, but like Thomas and Mooney, you could get a bigger payoff from Michael Thomas, but Mooney does seem like the safer pick.
Sounds like an attorney at law. Thomas and Mooney, attorneys at law. They'll fight for you when the other guys won't.
I don't think it's a bad spot. I don't think it's a bad spot where he took him at all, actually. Looking at the board and seeing where people went, like, yes, I like him more than Gabe Davis.
And you're seeing a lot of IDPs at this point go. I mean, my last pick, I went with a receiver because I didn't love what was sitting there. And I was like, well, I still need another receiver, a depth guy, number 3. So this is where you start to get, this is the part of our draft where it'll be interesting to see what some of you guys think about it. Cause you're starting to get guys that people, I mean, like you're seeing, the Patrick Queens of the world, which some people love, some people are not as huge on, or you have guys like, Khalil Mack, who could have a resurgence, but he continues to be up and down when it comes to being on the field. He's not consistent. So it'll be interesting to see what some of you guys think about, some of these last couple rounds. And as we start to move forward, and now it's my pick. So Kraig, talk about some of these picks that have happened recently. Is there anything that stands out to you, good, bad, or otherwise?
I thought Budda Baker going at defensive back 5, if you would have told people that a year ago, would have been crazy surprised. He was usually like a consensus 2 defensive back, or 3 anyway, I guess. So seeing him, not a big fall, but go down to 5. I guess it is with Chin counting as a defensive back, but that's where I'm going to end up playing him. So I'm considering him that. And part of that has to do with Austin's touched on this before. Some of these players with that dual position eligibility are more valuable because it gives you more flexibility. So you might consider taking them a little bit higher than you would in other spots, knowing that, hey, if I'm in a pinch, I don't have to drop a guy. I could play this defensive back at linebacker if I have other linebacker, other defensive backs on my bench. And same thing, with Joey Bosa. It's not one of the big appeals to him because, he's going to get used how he is. And I can't imagine really playing him at linebacker in a league like this. But again, it depends on how you construct your team. You just give yourself more options if you're drafting guys within about the range that you would want to. I'm not saying, go take one of these guys in round 3 or something like that just because they have that dual positionality. But I like to see the bonus of that. But to your question, Brad, about me posing a question or comment.
It's your turn to pick.
Baker just a little bit low, was surprising me. But I understand it with how things have gone there last year with Jalen Thompson and where Budda finished.
So, and we'll get back to your question real quick here. Scampers is trying to start a blood feud with us. These are colors. This is the Monday night show. These colors are the best colors in Sleeper. Beautiful colors.
See colors? I don't know.
Yeah. All you see is red. We get some oranges, some purples. I mean, they're beautiful colors. You're seeing some of the best colors there are. And if you do IDP, you see them all the time. So there it is. Scampers is causing some mischiefs. Austin is picking right now, so we're going to get to this next question. We'll start with Kraig on it. I have to drop one player. Hunter has a question. I have to drop one player on my bench. I have Trey Lance, Dillon, Patterson, Pickens, Pittman, Chargers defense. So we are learning that this must be a 1 QB, and obviously we've got team defenses in here. My thought, at least for me personally, if I'm dropping somebody here, it's Patterson if it's a dynasty, because I want all these other pieces long term. Kraig, what are you doing with what our friend Hunter here is asking?
Drop the team defense, and unless there's some sort of crazy scoring in any leagues that I've ever played in for team defenses, they don't consistently score you enough points for them to be the piece that you really have to just hold on to week to week to week. Usually you can find, again, if you're in a 20-team league, maybe you want to hold on to the defense because, you have like Jaguars and the Texans available or something, and that's it on waivers. But from, your standard 12 or 10-team league, I'm drafting the team defense or dropping the team defense. The value isn't there for them to me.
And if that's the direction you go, Hunter, I would love to know who your other defense is, because the Chargers defense could be solid this year. You'd have to check our team defenses show to see where they are for us, how we feel about them. But it could be a solid defense. Austin, what are you doing with this question? Who are you dropping?
Yeah, it's probably the same answer for me with a team defense. Like a lot of times, especially in redraft, I have a tendency to, unless I have the top performing defense, and like I think a couple years ago it was like the Patriots, where they were so productive and they were putting up so many points, like you could match with one of the best offensive guys on your team, which was crazy. So unless I have something like that, and really there's no way to tell, like it's just an educated guess really until they get on the field and just start producing. I do like the Chargers defense this year a lot. So, but I mean, out of that list, I think it's pretty easy. I would go Chargers defense. And, if you're forced to, you could always stream a defense, because we know like week to week, these things could change. And the other thing is the Chargers, I mean, look at the division. Look how the AFC West has changed. Yeah. It's always been tough, but now it's just insane.
His other defense is the Steelers. So if you're in a 12-team league, I'm perfectly fine dropping a defense and dropping the Chargers defense.
Yeah.
If you're in something where, it's 16 or so teams, I would probably drop, a player instead, because defenses are going to be harder to come by. But that's how I used to run my 16-team league. I would always roster 2 defenses because there were no defenses available. People didn't drop them. But it is what it is. Oh, it's only a 10-team league. Oh, I'm dropping the Chargers defense all the time. Like, yeah. I'm absolutely fine running one defense, because you can rotate those things in and out as needed.
Defensively, like if you're asking me to compare the two defenses, I think I like the Chargers better. But just being in that division, that's a nightmare. Yeah,
Steelers' opportunity this year, facing Cleveland probably without Deshaun Watson, most likely. Cincy obviously would be tough because Burrow is awesome, and then Lamar. I mean, you can get big plays off of him. There can be fumbles and interceptions potentially. Huge potential, but it's just better than the murderer's row the Chargers have in the AFC West.
Yeah.
Brad talking about murder over here. Throwback to the old IDP Heat Seekers.
The old days. I don't have a 1 per show on this one. So hopefully that helps, Hunter. So Kraig, my pick's about to be up. So talk about some of what's happened here. Now, I took Josh Allen last round because he's got flexibility in DLLB, things like that. So I can kind of use him either way. But you're seeing guys like Hassan Reddick, Cole Holcomb, Edmonds, Barrett. I mean, how do you feel about some of these most recent picks? And do you think anybody got overdrafted?
I'm trying to check.
Oh, he's coming for me.
Reddick. Come on. Wrong thing. IDP Flex Reddick. So Reddick has a dual position eligibility, and I do like that. I actually think he's gonna be a nice value where he got taken with having the defensive lineman eligibility. There's guys around here. I think I would have taken him over. Brad Hutchinson. And
I didn't take Hutchinson, so I took
the fact that
over
he's
Hutchinson.
a Lion is what I'm saying. Sorry.
Oh, I see.
And I'd probably take him over Trey Hendrickson too, because I think he has just the same big play potential, but he's going to get you, I think history's bore out so far, he's going to get you more tackles, and I like the overall upside and floor of Reddick more than him. So I thought that was a nice pick by you, Austin. And
I thought you were
Patrick
coming for me on that one.
Surtain being drafted here was interesting.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. Hopefully in the chat, Jimmy John, other than bring us freaky fast food, that you'll explain yourself, my friend.
Diggs, I think in the 12th is a little bit interesting to me as a cornerback. I mean, he had the interceptions last year, of course, but
yeah, that one
if there's any regression there,
for my liking.
Yeah.
And then, you could say the same thing with Bates too. Bates is interesting given the fact that, you brought up Roquan Smith. I think Bates is more likely to hold out for some period of time as opposed to Roquan Smith.
Yeah. What about picks we love? Like value that we love, and we can't say our own, so we have to pick someone else.
I mean, that's obvious. I always love my picks.
I like McKinney.
Unless it's Devy players when I'm on vacation trying to draft Devy players. So I made some bad moves last week.
McKinney and Poyer I both like where they went.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I just saw Jalen Thompson go. I think he's a good piece.
I was surprised that he was that far back from where Buddha went. You're talking 1, 2, 3-ish rounds difference between the two of them, and I'm pretty sure Thompson finished better than him last year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hunter. Never be sorry, my friend. We love comments. We love chatter. We love to answer questions. Obviously, week 1 starter, I think you got to go Keenan Allen potentially, but either one of them is going to be good. But you like Pittman better week 1?
Whatever.
They play the Texans week 1, I'm pretty sure. So I'm playing Pittman with Matt Ryan, getting their start together going against that Texans defense.
That was a panic pick.
Oh, Trevon. You know what? Obviously we've only seen one preseason game, but I like what Trevon Walker was doing off the edge. I like the way they used him. They let him really kind of attack from the edge. Now, obviously, you can't expect him to get a sack every game, but the pressure getting upfield. It's not a terrible pick. I don't know what they're really going to do. And right now, they've got him listed as strong side linebacker, I think.
He got the first sack of the NFL season.
I was going to say
second in sacks. What more could you want from a guy? The Jaguars were right all along about him.
I was fixing to say the same thing.
Correct. Oh, just digging right in, eh? Just.
The only reason I know that is I actually went and looked up the timestamps on each of the sacks in that game because I tweeted about it, because that's a sort of content you can get from me for tweets, because I don't take tweets seriously.
Agreed. So it is what it is. But yeah, so I'm okay. I think both are going to score well. And both have wide receiver 1 conversation. If you're looking for the boom pick, I haven't dug into analytics on either of the games yet, but if Pittman's going against Houston, probably going to dominate would be my guess. I can't imagine them focusing on just the run. I got to think they get involved in the passing game as well, unless they get up big early, which who knows? Lovey's defense transition, all that stuff could be big things. What about you, Austin? Are you Pittman or Allen?
I'm probably going Allen. He's just the veteran, especially if we're talking redraft. I like him. I like his quarterback situation quite a bit more. Obviously, he's going to get the ball fed to him a lot. He does have more competition with Mike Williams being there, although, again, just because Mike Williams had one good season, Mike Williams does still carry that injury risk. He is really one of those guys that actually kind of carries that. I don't think that necessarily goes away. I'm glad to see he had a mostly healthy year last year, but yeah, give me Allen, at least for redraft.
All right. So Ben has another question about rookie IDPs and how do we value them in year 1? Do they take time to contribute? Kraig, we'll start with you because I'm up to pick, and then I'll answer it last.
It is really hard to find the rookie IDPs that are going to hit. And I don't have the exact numbers up in front of me, but outside of 1 year, if we're going through the past 5 years, I think there's been 2, if we're just talking about 2 linebackers that I know of every year that are in the top 50 or something like that for their position. Last year it was Bolton and Micah Parsons. They just don't play a ton to be able to return that value. And we like to think, oh, these highly drafted guys. But you go back 2 years ago, even when there were all those first-round linebackers taken, you just didn't get the value out of them if you took them. Most of them weren't even worth playing at all. Zayvon Collins, Jamin Davis, guys like that barely saw the field. So it's really hard to know who's going to come out of it. You can kind of get a feel for some of it in the preseason, and then from there, what the teams do with their official starting lineups. Would you see someone like Davis and Collins, like, okay, well, they're not starting here. You were playing late in those last preseason games, the team's still getting a feel for their players. Maybe it's not those guys I want to focus on. The problem is usually that stuff comes out after your drafts are over with. So if you want to take them for late dart throws in redraft leagues, I'm fine with that if you got the right position and you're hearing the right things. But by and large, I don't see the value in taking them very high because for the most part, we just don't know.
Austin.
So I will defer to you, Brad, because I want to hear your answer. Although I do want to throw one thing in there. Is there a position like for rookies when you're looking at safety, corner, defensive lineman, linebacker, and you can even say outside linebacker or edge rusher? Is there one position that you think if we're talking about rookies who could step on the field day one and be a contributor, is there one position that you feel like is more likely to have that happen? Like, I feel like safety is really low. Like, safeties, rookies, I don't care how good they are. Like Kyle Hamilton, probably like not going to be a starter this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, he not in the starter in the sense of he's going to be a guy that's going to be getting that 80% snap share every game at the safety position where you'd want to start him. I mean, that's the other thing. We talk sometimes about who starts and who doesn't. You can have guys that start to get a 20, 30% snap share every game, and it's going to show, oh, he started 16 out of 16 games. He was terrible. Well, that's partly why when you're looking at ADP stuff, you got to look at how much they are on the field because that can matter. Someone can have no starts in the season and end up as a top 10 guy just because, he's out there for most sub packages, and that's what they end up being in for the game. So do I think Hamilton's going to get a starter snap share? No, probably not.
So I feel like the answer to my own question is like the edge rushers, defensive ends. I feel like they have more of a clear path usually when they get drafted, especially like those higher draft picks. Whereas like your linebackers, safeties, corners.
Well, and the tougher thing is you have to think about obviously every position on the field is difficult. They have their own nuances, but the edge rushers, those guys, for a rookie, you can really have packages built where you just let them get up the field and try to destroy them, right? Mm-hmm. Like your linebackers, they have to learn, especially depending on your scheme, they got to learn how to be able to drop back in coverage, when to drop off their guy, when to grab on, to grab onto somebody else, depending on how the formation's going and the shifting of the coverages and things like that. It just, as you work your way from the defensive line back, it gets more in depth and more delicate and more difficult to pick it up quickly, especially if you come from think of like the Devin Lloyds of the world going to Jacksonville. He's probably going to be on the field from day one, but he played at a school that, that the defensive playbook is probably not nearly as in depth as some of these NFL defensive playbooks. So, I would err on the side of each case is very difficult and different. I would lean edge rushers give you a chance for success earlier on. Look at like the Gregory Rousseaus of the world. He looked pretty solid being a guy that could rotate in and they could use attacking off the edge. Looked good. Year two, we're expecting bigger things, better things, but then also, look at some of these other, the linebackers, the early linebackers taking things like that. They may get on the field early, but they may look out of place quite often. So I get a little concerned there. Doesn't mean I don't love them, don't think long-term they can have value, but I'm typically trying not to draft rookies to force to start them early because you never know what you're going to. It's a mixed bag. How quickly do they pick things up? How quickly do they learn their assignments? It's different for everybody,
looking at edge rushers, if you go through it, points per game in a lot of these leagues, the highest rookie last year was Jonathan Greenard, who he wasn't even a rookie last year, was he?
He'd been in the league a few years, but that was like his first year playing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like Peyton Turner then and Rousseau were the two highest edge guys in points per game that they played last year, and you're looking at guys down like 35, like in points per game or something. So it's still difficult just for rookies in general, unless they're going to be that linebacker that's left out on the field for that huge snap share, like we saw with Parsons and Bolton. Most of them aren't going to return it for you, and sometimes you'll get lucky and pick them. Like Winfield the other year was one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Javon Holland played really well once he, after the first few weeks when he got acclimated and was on the field consistently. But it's hard to pick them. It's just not easy.
And you're up as well with 6 seconds left.
It's going to auto pick because I closed out my tab accidentally. So you'll see who I picked before I see who I picked.
Kyle Hamilton.
Speaking of quality safeties that aren't going to be on the field, you just picked one.
Well, there you go.
And even some of these guys, like if you told me at the end of the year Kyle Hamilton got more snaps than 20-30%, I'd be surprised. Like I just don't expect to see him on the field because of what they've got already.
Yeah.
But if he is on the field more and produces, it wouldn't surprise me either because I liked him coming out. I was a big fan. Anybody who watched the show earlier in the offseason, I was saying Detroit should take him. If Aiden Hutchinson goes 1, take Kyle Hamilton at 2. And
the other thing about him is that they have question marks at linebacker, which could be helpful for him to get on the field in a different sort of format where if they have him playing up sort of more like a Jeremy Chin or, Chuck Clark has done that before for them. If he's going to play up closer in the box, more as a linebacker than a true safety, and that gets 3 safeties on the field more. We saw that a lot with Washington last year where they had 3 safeties on the field a lot with McCain, Collins, and Curl. So is there that potential? There certainly is. We just haven't seen that indication that that's what they're going to do yet.
Very true.
So in redraft, the answer is year 1 guys probably avoiding, but like year 2 guys like Richie Grant, who I was really high on last year, got hardly any snap share at all. And then now this year he's being thrust into a starting role and I expect good things for him. So sometimes it's just waiting a year. Sometimes it's waiting longer than that. It's just really hard to tell.
Well, and if you're later, like at this point in the draft, Devin Lloyd, for instance, rookie, win the 16th round. I'm fine with that. Like, I don't have a problem. If you think a rookie's going to see 75+% snaps, why not take him? Because what if he is better than expected and really does overproduce? Then you got him at a steal price, right?
And it's your 4th linebacker.
Right. I mean, based on what your team looks like, I mean, you that's fine. I'm okay with that. The thing I'm not okay with is taking Kyle Hamilton when you know that he's not going to get a ton of snaps. That's why Kraig. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, so if you're taking guys that you expect to have a big snap share as a rookie later in the draft, perfectly fine with that strategy because Aiden Hutchinson, another one of those that he probably went earlier than I would have taken him because I was looking at Buckner because I know what I'm getting out of him in that round for a defensive lineman that I expect to start regularly. But Aiden Hutchinson should be on the field for a significant amount of snaps because he's their best defensive lineman already, and he's not even played yet. So, I don't hate you taking a guy.
Don't listen to him. He's a Michigan and Lions fan. Don't listen to him.
Go Blue. Only 26 days away from Michigan starting the Revenge World Tour all the way to the championship, baby.
We've had a lot of really good engagement and questions in here, and
it's been a great show.
That makes me super happy. Yeah. Thank you for everybody who's joined so far. You guys
Boston's
rock.
happy. I'm happy.
Oh, yeah. I'm mostly happy. Oh, here we go. We got another. This one
we do.
from
You guys
Anthony
start talking about this when I'll make a pick.
says, going into his sophomore year, will Nick Bolton finish no worse than an LB2? I like it. I absolutely like it. Yeah. I mean, like, he's really the only constant on the defense in the linebacker room for Kansas City that I'm even considering. Like, everybody wanted Willie Gay to be great. I'm a Kansas City fan, by the way, so I wanted Willie Gay to be great, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to fend off. Why can't I think of the rookie's name right now? The guy they drafted?
Chanel.
Yeah, Leo Chanel. Like, I like him a lot. But, yeah, Bolton's the guy there in Kansas City. He's going to be calling the defense in the middle of the field. He's going to be able to. He does a lot of things really well. He's able to get in the backfield. He doesn't generate a lot of sacks. That's something that I would like to see him do more of this year. Is just be able to be let loose and get to the quarterback. But what he does do well is he tackles well in space. He's able to get in the backfield, create at least some tackle for loss numbers and things like that. So I think he could easily finish as an LB2 for sure.
He was exactly as we here, Roto Heat, and I mean other places, but to plug ourselves, advertised him as last year, where he's sort of more of that throwback linebacker, where he's athletic, but he's a missile. He will hit you. He's great tackling, and he's a great linebacker if that's what you're looking for. Concerns that we had were him in coverage, and first year in the NFL, a lot of guys are going to have sort of issues that are linebackers because the NFL passing game is a completely different thing than the NFL, and that kind of bore itself out. So if he's going to end up being a long-term LB2 or push for that LB1, he's going to have to improve in coverage. But it's clear that the Chiefs are going to give him that opportunity, which is what we're looking for in IDP.
Opportunities is king. I like Bolton. I'm with you guys. I think he's an LB2 at least, and he probably pushes for LB1, back end LB1 at most. Just because there's some really good quality linebackers in the league right now. I mean, when you try to build out, 12, and you assume 12 is kind of that top LB1 section. I mean, I could make the case for Bolton at 11 or 12 probably, but some things have to happen, and the way this team is built, I think he has the opportunity because this team's going to look a lot different. Tyreek Hill was a big part of that offense. So what does that look like with Patrick trying to build relationships and rapport with a whole bunch of different guys at receiver, trying to figure out who his true number one is. Can Hardman ascend to the throne of Tyreek Hill status in that offense? Can Juju step up? Can Sky Moore step up? Whatever. Well, maybe that means they start off trying to figure things out, and that means the defense gets on the field a little bit more. Nick Bolton has more opportunity for tackles, get you some more sacks, maybe interception or something. Who knows? So then you start to build I start to build the picture in my mind like, hey, maybe Bolton does get high end RB2, back end RB1 value. But
if he is RB2 value, Brad,
yep.
I'm going to come back and just say that you got a crystal ball because I don't know what he's been doing and what you've been doing to pull that out.
Sorry, I was already starting to look at the guys to draft. So
I'm drafting him in the 5th. Yeah, I'm drafting him in the 5th.
The other show that I was
that's some
on,
true dual sleeper.
Someone
you need to get on
mentioned
that. Let them be whatever.
Mixing like a wide receiver at a cornerback. And I'm like, man, talk about dual positionality. If you get points when he's on the field, both sides of the ball, that'd be something.
This is what happens when you go past your time, right? You go past,
or when you're
past
on vacation
10:30, anything's possible.
Month.
I don't want to plug my own team, but I do want to talk about one player, which is Chandler Jones. Is it disrespectful in redraft for him to be drafted where he's being drafted right now? Because he has dual eligibility as a defensive lineman and a linebacker, by the way. He's listed as a linebacker on the draft board, but he does have that defensive line eligibility.
I don't know where to get drafted. I can't see him.
18th. 18-9? Yeah.
Honestly, with the other defensive linemen, I mean, that feels right-ish. I mean, I wouldn't have taken Walker ahead of him.
Well, yeah.
Hutchinson I would not have taken ahead of him yet. Honestly don't know that I'd take Trey Hendrickson ahead of him. I probably should have taken him ahead of Greg Rousseau.
He's listed as like 200. He was listed as like 299th overall.
Well, that's probably sleeper, and knowing your platform. Your sleeper is really dynasty based.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. That's the only reason I wanted to mention it was like, for you guys who are in here who are doing the redraft stuff, like you can find some great value if you just look down just a little bit further. And I feel like Chandler Jones is one of those guys. Yeah.
Brad taking another Michigan guy, boy. Is that every other pick you're going here, Brad?
I'm gonna build the Colts defense as my team defense. I got Buckner, went K Whitty Pay. I didn't get Hutchinson, but I'll trade for him, right?
More. So you took him, didn't you?
I did not take Hutchinson, but
go Jabril Peppers.
I kept looking at Jabril Peppers and like, I guess I don't know what to make of him in the Patriots defense, right? I know they activated him. He looks like he's healthy, but
he's got the he's got the Kyle Hamilton appeal, I guess. Like, he has the ability to play.
I'm gonna go with
up
another
in that-
Michigan man, Rashawn Gary. Go ahead, Austin.
No, I can't, because Craig's face was amazing right there.
I was very happy, Brad, in our Devy league that I'm in with you when Aiden Hutchinson was taking one pick ahead of you.
Well, yeah, well, because so I was on vacation, and the guy that takes him Tampa Bay is Aaron. That's my cousin. Like, I got him into that league, you know. So he calls and I mean, he typically calls and talks about, you know, Devy and IDP and things like that. And he doesn't typically ask me who I would take, but he, you know, just starts talking about guys and getting opinions and things like that. And him and I have been doing that forever. We both got into fantasy. He got me into fantasy in 2001 when we started our home league. So I told him, I was like, I'm going to take Aiden here. So if you're looking for IDP help, you better take him, because otherwise I'll draft him. Because that's where I mean, second, third round in any league, I take him. So
when you trade for him later, we have it recorded on the show here. It's
collusion. Nah, I won't trade for him.
I see how it is.
You know how hard it is to trade in that league? I don't know how I got Bryce Young as a Devy pick, as a Devy player before this draft. Like, when Elliot texted me about trading for my picks, you know, I told him, I was like, well, I'll trade any of the first 3 rounds of picks because I'm on vacation. I'm not going to have time to make a pick quickly. I was like, so all my picks are available. And he's like, well, what about Bryce Young? I was like, sure. I mean, I need another quarterback, so he'll be in the league.
Absolutely not. Block your number.
So yeah, so now it's so hard to trade in that league, though. I mean, and it feels like my flea flicker leagues, it's always harder to trade. Like, I'll send trades and I get nothing back in return, just reject and then ignore. And it's like, I don't know, it must be a flea flicker
trade with Brad.
Oh, is that what it is?
Trades in there. I don't know.
I may be pound for pound the biggest trader in Roto Heat history. Like, I trade all the time. All right,
we did it.
Speaking of trading, we traded an empty draft for a full draft, and we traded an empty mock for a full mock, and then we're done with James Robinson, Mr. Irrelevant pick of the draft. I don't know, it's really irrelevant, but last pick in the draft. That's it, people. You know, I appreciate the chat coming out, showing up strong. We had some scamping around. We had Hunter. We had all sorts of good conversations. We appreciate it. Guys, any final thoughts about what we saw here these last few rounds? I will make sure to do some screenshots and share this over on the Twitter. So, you know, follow us over on Twitter and you can get information. You can talk to us. You can ask questions if you're in the middle of your draft. Go to rotoheat.com, join our Discord. You can stay in the conversation with us in Discord. We got an IDP chat that's constantly going off over there, and people are chatting it up. And we talk about all things, not only IDP. But Craig, any final thoughts about what we just saw here and how great my team defense is with many, many Michigan alums?
Well, Brad's clearly finishing last in the league. So then it's sort of, you know, where do the rest of us fall into it? But no, I mean, one of the things that we saw, you know, towards the end here, a lot of those second-year players that maybe necessarily hadn't done a whole lot, but there's that promise, and they got a little bit of play at the end of the year, mixed in with some rookies taking, you know, a little bit higher than I would take them, which is fine. You know, some of these guys that we didn't even talk about, like Petrie on Houston, other players going later, like Austin had mentioned, Chandler Jones, and one of them that I took to try to atone for my other pick was Von Miller. You know, he has a defensive line eligibility, and he showed he still has it in the tank, and reports out of training camp are great with him. So in redraft, I'm completely happy to get him in round 20. To Austin's point, know the platform that you're drafting on, and don't be a slave to ADP. Most of your leagues aren't going to be drafting this quick, so dig down in the list and find those hidden gems.
Austin.
Yeah, I mean, a few picks that stand out to me here in the last couple of rounds. You know, Matthew Stafford and Trey Lance going this late. It could, I mean, it's just a one quarterback league, but yeah, those are nice picks. Jalen Tolbert was interesting, and Christian Harris was interesting. You know, I don't know.
I really feel like Harris is going to be one of those guys at the end of the year we look back on and we're like, man, he was woefully underappreciated because of what Houston's defense, how often they'll be on the field. Him and Petrie, I fully expect to be relevant IDP players by the end of the season just because they're going to be on the field a bunch.
Yeah, I agree. So, but it could go either way with Harris. I mean, but I think he has a pretty clear path to some playing time, significant playing time. And if he's productive, like that pick's going to pay off pretty big for Jimmy John here. Jalen Tolbert, I mean, could be a Dallas fan. I don't know. But he's got a starting role right now, at least for the first however many games without Gallup.
Gallup could be out until October. I mean, coming back from that injury, I mean, it could be, it could be a month and a half.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. I mean, overall, for these all being IDP folks, I thought everything went pretty smoothly. Everybody drafted really strong teams. As I got to the second half of the draft, for me at least, it was like, well, my starting lineup's filled, so now I'm just going to pick players I think could pop off, players I think could outperform where they're sitting, things like that. I mean, that's why like Shaq Thompson's of the world got drafted because he's, Carolina's most consistent linebacker. Why can't he go in 15? But then you see some of these other guys, like I like, some of these under the radar picks, some of the younger guys that could produce and develop, thought Noob grabbing Lazard, people have been kind of all over the place about Lazard's value in Green Bay, but I think he could pop off and be a strong producer. Getting him that late could be huge, and then at the end of the drafts, I mean, if you've built your lineup and you've got solid, strong guys across the board to start, take shots, pick guys you like, draft Michigan alums, whatever you want to do. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
I think it turned out well though. So I do appreciate everybody showing up in the comments on the mock. Anybody who watches after the fact, if you got questions, jump in Discord, find us on Twitter. We're all about chatting on Twitter. We thank you guys for hanging out with us a little bit longer tonight, but we want to make sure we got through 20 rounds. Kraig, Austin, thank you guys as well. We have a few more shows before the season starts. We'll be back every Monday until we get to football. Once we get to football, obviously you're going to want to watch Monday night. So did you say 3 more?
3 more.
That's
three
it.
more Mondays left. So and then once we get in season, we'll be doing, waiver wire pickup type things. Kraig and I were helping you guys get waiver wires last year on the IDP side. So we'll work on trying to figure out ways to give you some good IDP content in season. Then once we get back to the off season, obviously we'll talk about and get the IDP show fired back up. So you got 3 more weeks of us, and then we got football back, which is great. We love that. So thank you guys as always. We'll see you next Monday. We love y'all. See ya.